Hello everybody, this is Armra, and one of the comments in the previous video asked for a quick tutorial on how to do orbits, and I thought I'd do that, and so it's pretty easy. And I was thinking probably what people really want is a way to build a rocket that can lift those really heavy payloads that everyone seems to want to get up there and further. So, I start with a big capsule, 3 Kerbals, and a Rockamax decoupler. Easy. And then you use the tiniest Rockamax fuel tank, and I put a Poodle engine under it. And these goals, they're not that different from the early days of the space program when they were just getting the hang of orbits. If you look at NASA, one of the first manned probes one of the first non-manned probes was the Explorer 1 that was a test of the concept of sending something up into orbit. I mean, we knew it could be done, but it was the first time we actually did it. And it wasn't until Project Mercury that we started working on actually getting people into space. And that capsule was smaller than this. It's more reminiscent of the Mark 1 command pod here than anything else. But let me show you a picture of it real quick. Yeah, this is the capsule for the Gemini module, the Gemini spacecraft, I guess you'd call it. Or no, not Gemini, the Mercury spacecraft. Sorry, ran from 1959 to 1963, and it was the very first manned space flight that resulted in an orbit, and even suborbit, I believe. It just we just shot a man up there. Yeah, Alan Shepard was the first U.S. man in space, beaten a little bit by Yuri Gagarin on the cosmonaut side, the Soviet side. And impressive the amount of stuff they were working with and how much they had to figure out for themselves. And you can see the chutes there being packed. You can see how tiny it is. It just must have been awful to ride in. Other than, the fact that you get to be one of the first people in space ever. And you can see the blueprint here and how tiny it was. It's just very tiny. I would go on one right now if I had the chance, but I'm sure it was not comfy compared to the other, and the suits were really strange too. This is one of my favorite photographs ever of John Glenn. He was the first man to do an actual orbit in the Mercury spacecraft, and this was during his orbit. One of the photos taken, and it just looks great. You can see he's just packed in there with machines, hooked up to stuff. I mean, it's iconic. You got to think that Arthur C. Clarke and Kubrick, specifically Stanley Kubrick, had inspiration for his set design and production design for 2001: A Space Odyssey from this. And then they had a stamp, and I like it. It's a good stamp. So not as exciting as the other pictures, but anyway, back to the rocket. Alright, so this is the easy part. I mean, Project Mercury, nothing those guys did was easy. They were figuring everything out from scratch, basically. So it's pretty easy to get Kerbals in orbit by comparison. At least we have all our parts ready. And no heat problems to worry about. So this is just our return stage. So all we're doing with this is getting down to Kerbal from wherever. And it's actually more than enough power there. We don't really need to go crazy with that. And might as well throw in an ASAS at this stage. And this just keeps you more stable with gimbaled engines, so it works fine. Probably not even necessary. We're not having any real complications here, so our flight should be pretty level and pretty even. And this is a fine-tuning stage with plenty of fuel for boosts and orbit changes. You can go wherever you'd like. And this is the final bit here, and the most important bit. So it's going to be our heavy lifter, and you can double the size of this and put 2 orange tanks if you really, really need a lot of lifting power, but it's not really necessary generally. So So basically the idea here is we want to daisy chain the components. And the easiest way to do that is, let's first put an engine down because it can be hard to get in the middle there. But you grab these right here, the small, these are supposedly weaker than the hydraulic detachment manifold, but I've had a real hard time getting all the parts put on something with that because they seem to intersect and refuse to go down. So set down 6 guide parts at the top. You're going to get rid of these later, but these just show you where to place them. Because the best way, if you think about it, when you're getting something into orbit, you're competing against your mass with your acceleration. And it's a thing that's constantly changing as you expend fuel. And you want to, you want to maximize your acceleration and minimize your mass. So the way to do that is to throw away parts of your rocket as you're going up. And that's staging, as you all know it already. But you can also be more efficient about it in that if you daisy chain your rockets together, as I'm about to show you how, you will dump parts, engines, when they're about half empty basically after they pumped half their fuel into the next rocket over. So make a new stage and right here. So yeah, just follow the guide and try to roughly place them close together. Okay, and it did not put those in the next stage, so scoot those down into the next stage if it does that to you. I've had it sometimes work properly and get things into the proper stage, but yeah, anyway. And this is the same idea. The daisy chaining is in the Kerbal 10 in the base ships directory, and that ship is plenty enough to get you into orbit if you want to load it up, but this is more of a heavy lifter. So yeah, those didn't go in the right space either, so scoot those down. Just doesn't want to cooperate with me today. So yeah, this is so you see these two get ejected, then the two to the left of it, and then the two to the right of it. So yeah, that's the way to go there. Get rid of your guide up here. You can eyeball that if you want, but I just find it simpler that way. So add new fuel tanks. And I try to find some reference point as I lay them down, so I make sure they are all about the same height. And I just use generally the top or the bottom of one of my connectors. That seems to work pretty well. So yeah, looks good, looks good. And you do definitely want to attach a strut connector. Or 2, or more. Don't want to go too crazy, but... And be careful not to attach it to the, you don't want to attach it to the fairing that the game now adds, because that's just it's not really there, so, and yeah, because these are 2 bi-symmetrical parts, you do have to add them to each, so, and it could look better if you had a nose cone, but the aerodynamics are not simulated right now, so there's no real reason to do so. There for a second. Don't forget to add engines, and the most important part is coming up. So take a look at your staging. First you want to move all your engines down, and let's see, so first stage is going to ignite all of your main engines. including this one that will always hide up there before you start. And that's the central engine, the middle column there. All the other stuff looks okay so far. And okay, so down here we have a issue with. Okay, so the first one that's going to pop off is this one right here, and then the second is this one. So what you want to do is attach a fuel line. So you're going to pump fuel from this one to this one once you launch, and then from this one to this one. And the final bit is just pumping from the last booster to the central stack. Now let me make sure I'm actually reaching it. There we go. So, and that should be repeated on the other side because we're at 2 times symmetry. So yeah, if everything worked right, we should have a viable rocket now. And let's give it a shot. And yeah, we'll name it the YouTube 3. Which gives you a hint on my 2 screw-ups before we actually got underway. So, it's ready to go, throttled up. Bob Kerman is the only remaining crew. The rest are up on my space station way up there. So, I went ahead and engaged the SAS just so I don't have to make any minute corrections or screw up anything for YouTube. But for simple launches, you don't really need it. So, here we go. So as you're heading up, you want to start going just straight up until about 20 kilometers. And that's when you start getting pretty much free of the atmosphere. So, almost on the second boosters here. We're still going strong. About 12K, so yeah, we're getting up there. But then when you actually want to start getting into orbit, as soon as you're beyond the grip of the atmosphere more or less, you got to start thinking, what kind of orbit do I want? Generally when you're starting out, an equatorial orbit's the way to go. It gives you the most kind of feel for the process. So we just hit 20K, so let's start turning. And yeah, you can just hit the D key as default to kind of maneuver your way, start that gravity turn. Yeah, the gravity does most of the work, you just tilt it over. Now I hit T again to restabilize, so, yeah, but we're not quite going fully sideways yet, but 1 second. I'm not quite sure what's going on. One moment here. Can't seem to turn. There you go, back on track. We've lost a lot of power from that, but it'll be okay. So now you're heading roughly sideways as you're gaining speed. So 1 second, and we're already at 100K. So you can see our apoapsis here is increasing. And because of the Mercury, let's cut off at about 250 kilometers here. That'll be about John Glenn. Pretty close. Let's give it a little bump. Yeah, it's close enough for government work. And you see we're not quite in the equatorial orbit I hoped for because of my wild gyrations as we were getting up. And this is debris. I don't know why it says unknown. Well, we'll figure that out later. Anyway, yeah, that's really odd. I'm not sure on that one. Anyway, so now we're heading. It'll be 3 minutes before we hit apoapsis. We still got plenty of fuel. Okay, so time warp. Well, it's not letting me accelerate. Yeah, I don't know why. So I guess we're waiting it out, YouTube. Yeah. So Mercury did a lot of things from scratch. Heat shielding is one thing. They weren't sure whether they should use beryllium, I believe, as the heat shield, or like a beryllium composite of some sort, or just an ablative. They ended up doing with some kind of glass and steel mix fiber of some sort on the bottom that would just burn away as the ship re-entered. And the capsule itself had two aerodynamically stable ways of re-entering, and it was the bottom with a heat shield flat, or the top if they went in that way. And it had a spoiler on the top that would let you kind of fix it, and it would automatically flip the ship over in air. So a lot of safety systems are designed completely passively, so the astronauts and mission control didn't have to do anything to make sure it worked. And one example of that is the launch escape system, which there's no equivalent in Kerbal yet, but this was tested on the before the Mercury missions. And it was basically a little rocket on the top of the Mercury rockets, the Atlas D and a few others, that would, in case the craft was coming apart, it would basically pull the capsule away, high up and away from the exploding rocket, and basically allow it to deploy its chutes and abort launch. And this was because they were not sure or confident enough. It's still a great idea. You never know what will happen. And a cool way this worked actually was there were just 3 wires running up the length of the Saturn V, for example. And if those wires stopped responding, it would just basically, if that signal wasn't there, if 2 of the 3 wires weren't there, it would just shoot off. So it was completely passive. Like, they basically decided if those wires are broken, that means the ship is coming apart. So that means time to get out of there. That's the other and it seems kind of risky when you think about it, but they knew what they were doing. I mean, so now we're gonna burn to circularize our orbit. Well, to roughly circularize. This thing is just being very finicky and not wanting to respond to my controls. So this is making it very difficult. I should add an RCS. So this booster stage has served its purpose. So I recommend you add your rocket, add a RCS system to it. Make it easy on yourself. We're going to get rid of this booster. Let's see if this gets under control. Yeah, there we go. Looking much better. I guess it's just all that matters. Maybe not. There we go. So yeah, we've kind of screwed things up now, but we'll be okay. So we just want to make sure that we don't re-enter the atmosphere. So we're already down a significant amount of our altitude. So let's adjust a little bit, and we can use the horizon to fix it. So you see our speeds going up and up here. Fortunately, we're heading above our target altitude on the apoapsis because it took so long to get that burn in. I wouldn't have this weirdness in our orbit if we got the burn in right at the apoapsis. So for your tutorial video to follow up, you should fix that. Be sure you get it right on the burn there. So we've broken the surface here, so slowly gaining altitude, so it's not going to be a complete failure, though we are way above our original orbit idea here. So this is fine when we stop. Okay, so now we need to fix this, and, you know, actually, yeah, let's fix it. It's just so far off from what I originally planned, but I've enjoyed talking and, you know, doing it, so we're just going to finish it and see how we can change. Well, let me time warp now. Finally. The new Kerbal is really pretty. I love the atmosphere effects. So here we are at periapsis, and we have a chance to shrink the apoapsis a little bit. Let's not squander it this time. With orbital maneuvers, you always want to be moving prograde or retrograde. So you want to be moving on the green spot with the circle, which is forward, or on the green spot back, which is backward. And you see we're rapidly shrinking our apoapsis. This is the most efficient, these are the most efficient places to adjust your orbit, sorry. And so yeah, we're dropping it down really quick. Okay, great. So that's perfect. So now we can just repeat the process on the other side here and get this up to 250, and we're pretty much on schedule here. "12 seconds. You don't have to be too precise here. I mean, it's not rocket science or anything. Or, wait, I guess. Oh well. One kind YouTuber told me how to do maneuvers from the map window, but I can't remember it, so hopefully he leaves another comment and tells me how again, or I could just look it up. So now you see they're rapidly moving back around. And when they're at about the halfway mark, it's circular. Close enough. And you could do a couple more burns at both these points, either prograde if you want to increase the other side, or retrograde if you want to decrease the other side. Just remember, don't try to decrease or increase the side you're currently heading for. If you're heading toward the apoapsis, don't burn to try to fix that, because it's the most inefficient thing you can do. But burning to try to fix this when you're here is the most efficient. So when you start to see them curl around, you want to stop. And then when they're about halfway toward you, that means they're pretty much equal. So yeah, basically circular orbit. But maybe this eccentricity, that we didn't really intend in the first place, is getting on your nerves. And that's good, because there's a new feature that's pretty good at that. Though it's probably, I don't know if we have enough delta V for it, but let's see. So you look for an intersect in the equator here, and add maneuver. And you can pull down right there. And that's a little bit too much. Yeah, it looks about better. Hard to say. There's so too many competing lines here. But, yeah, it looks about right. Okay, I'll settle for that. That gives us a maneuver down the line here. So let's head over there. One minute to the burn. Because I don't have an RCS, I've got to... Wait, let me see. Oh, okay, good. The module is good enough to move us around here. So this requires quite a bit of delta V to get us in this, from this crazy to a more reasonable one. So. So you can see the countdown right at the bottom of the screen. It says your node's at this amount of time, and the estimated burn time will change as soon as we start burning. This is going to take me 1 minute. I'm not sure how accurate that's going to end up being, but we'll see. I'll probably run out of fuel before I can really fix this problem. We'll see. So you notice a little fuel goes a long way for this kind of thing. So now you can see our orbit, how it changed, what the maneuver plan was, what it ended up being. Didn't quite make exactly what we were going for, but definitely evened it out a lot. So much more of an equatorial orbit now. So you know, we could do things like, you know, from this pretty stable high up orbit, you can hit time warp, zip around the planet a few times. Oh, and in our burn we inadvertently increased our apoapsis again, so that would need fixing. Yeah, I didn't mean to do that, but that's okay. And this would not be too bad of a time to do a rendezvous. Hey, we're pretty much lined up with the other one right now, so we just have to fix our orbit a little. But oh, let's take a look at that, just so anybody who watched the previous videos can see how my station's doing. So actually I added a big array here, and for some reason Bob is on both the ground and my ship, so I don't know why that is, but it's an interesting little bit. So yeah, it's looking pretty good up here. Jeb is still happy. So back to the YouTube 3. So we're done on our little hop, and time to go home. So just point your ship at retrograde. Yeah. And I still haven't figured out what's causing these weird inconsistencies in the studio. And I definitely don't like it, but you know. Suddenly I get random angular momentum from somewhere. And so I recommend, if you do this basic same procedure, put RCSs on your ship so you can control that kind of thing. Or maybe I'll just figure out what's causing it, and we won't have any more problems in the future. We'll see. And you can target where you want to land for more interesting landings, but I'm just not even bothering. Let's try to land in this desert, I guess. That's something new. Okay, so now things are going really crazy. So something is making my craft spin around for no reason I can tell. This happened with one of my previous ones too. So I'm giving the SAS enough. Okay, that should get us more or less in the desert, we'll see. And there's that island there, which I'm looking forward to exploring later, but... So So all the debris should pretty much harmlessly do orbit. So. And drop our final stage there in kind of a dangerous way, but that's fine. Try to avoid litho braking here, we should be fine. And I'm still getting that weird tumble. SAS is on, but it's just wanting to tumble. I'm guessing it's something from the command pod itself? I really don't know. It should not be like the struts or anything, so I'm really not sure. It seems to be evening out now. We'll be just on the edge of the desert, which is good. Physical time warp can help with landings a bit. The ground snuck up on me a little. The altimeter says it's much higher than it actually is. I just noticed the last second, so we should be okay. Yep, there we go. So the clone Bob can hop out. And that's something you always need to be aware of in landings. Make sure if you're landing on a mountain or mountainous feature, you kind of have an idea about the altitude. And there's a MapSat mob, ISA MapSat, can help you with that, and supposedly new features in the future too. So yeah, you can see their outfit. Much more advanced, much closer to our modern day outfits than the Mercury programs. Those poor guys in their tin suits. So still a lot of engineering behind those too. So yeah, doesn't get you anywhere on Kerbin, but still kind of fun. Anyway, that's the end of the tutorial. So basically, how to get into orbit even if everything screws up. So should give you a good idea, and you know. From there, I could have boosted all the way to the moon or wherever, probably not without much issue. It's the biggest expenditure is just getting off the ground, and once you're up there, a little bit of fuel goes a very long way. So, yeah. Ending flight, and hope I see you guys next time. I hope anybody enjoys this tutorial. And I'm Armra, and yeah, leave me a comment, let me know what you think of the video. So yeah, have a good day, guys.